Maya's frame cast shadows that swallowed doorways whole. 7 feet, 4 inches of bone and sinew that the colony architects had never planned for. The crystalline corridors of Nexus Station hummed with disapproval every time she passed through, her footsteps echoing like accusations against the polished floors. "Another giant," whispered the settlers as she navigated the market plaza, her head bent to avoid the hanging light fixtures. Why do they keep sending them? The Nexari, delicate beings with translucent skin and voices like wind chimes, watched her with undisguised bewilderment. Their society valued harmony above all else, and Maya's presence disrupted every carefully calibrated space. She was a discord in their symphony, a sharp note that made their sensitive ears ring. Dr. Kess had delivered the verdict with clinical detachment. 3 months after Maya's arrival, reproductive incompatibility confirmed. Neural pathways show no resonance with our breeding protocols. Classification: sterile variant. The words had carved themselves into her memory. Back on Terra Nova, she'd been a champion captain of the orbital construction crews, first to volunteer for the most dangerous builds in zero gravity. Her size had been an asset there, her reach and strength legendary among the scaffolding teams. Here, among beings who reproduced through synchronized neural harmony, she was nothing more than a biological curiosity. The quarters they'd assigned her were a joke, a converted storage unit with a ceiling that forced her to live in a forced her to live in a permanent crouch. She'd learned to dress in the dark, to eat standing up, to shower in sections because the stall was built for beings half her height. Every morning was a reminder that she didn't belong. Maya worked the outer maintenance sectors now, where the artificial atmosphere grew thin and the magnetic shielding required constant adjustment. It was lonely work, but it kept her away from the whispers, away from the sympathetic glances that felt more like pity than kindness. The neural assessment chamber still haunted her dreams. The Nexari technicians had attached sensors to her temples, searching for the harmonic frequencies that would allow her to participate in their reproductive cycles. The machines had hummed and beeped for hours, scanning for wavelengths that simply didn't exist in her biology. "Nothing," the lead technician had announced, removing the sensors with something resembling distaste. "No compatibility markers." Number. Synchronization potential. This specimen cannot participate in life creation. Specimen. Not person, not individual. Specimen. Now she stood on the observation deck of the outer ring, watching the twin suns of the Kepler system paint the nebula in shades of amber and gold. The view was magnificent, but it felt like looking at beauty through prison bars. Everything here was too small, too refined, too perfect for someone like her. Behind her, the deck hissed open. Maya didn't turn. She'd learned that most visitors were just maintenance drones making their rounds. But footsteps followed, lighter than hers but distinctly bipedal, human. "The sunset's different here," a voice said. Male, unfamiliar, with an accent she couldn't place. Maya glanced over her shoulder. He was average height by human standards, maybe. 5'10", with dark hair that looked like he'd been running, his hands through it and clothes that suggested he worked with his hands. His eyes met hers without the usual flicker of calculation that preceded every interaction she'd had on this station. "You're the engineer," she said. It wasn't a question. "Kai," he replied, stepping up to the observation window but keeping a respectful distance. "And you're Maya Chun, structural specialist." She blinked, surprised he knew her name. Most humans here kept to themselves, and she'd made no effort to socialize. "How do you—" "I read the crew manifests." Impressive resume. He gestured toward the stars. "Zero-gravity construction for 12 years. Orbital platform specialist. They had you building the gateway station." Maya's throat tightened. The gateway had been her masterpiece, a massive orbital hub that served as humanity's jumping-off point to distant colonies. She'd overseen every beam, every joint, every rivet. That was before I became useless. Kai turned. To look at her then, really look at her. Not measuring, not cataloging, just seeing. You built a structure that houses 2 million people and serves as humanity's primary interstellar port. That doesn't become useless overnight. Try telling that to the Nexari. They stood in silence for a while, watching the nebula shift and swirl like cosmic paint. Maya found herself stealing glances at him. When was the last time someone had stood this close without commenting on her height? When was the last time someone had mentioned her achievements rather than her deficiencies? I should get back to work, she said finally. The magnetic field generators in Section C are fluctuating, Kai said as she turned to leave. Could use someone who understands large-scale structural stress. Maya paused. That's not my assignment. Assignments change. If you're interested. She looked back at him one more time. He was still watching the stars, hands tucked into the pockets of his work jacket, completely relaxed in her presence. Why? Because the job needs doing, and you're the best qualified person on the station to do it. The magnetic field generators were housed in a maintenance bay deep in the station's core, where the artificial gravity was strongest and the walls were thick enough to contain electromagnetic pulses. Maya had to duck through 3 separate airlock doors to reach the worksite, her tool bag scraping against the narrow passages. Kai was already there when she arrived, surrounded by diagnostic equipment and looking frustrated. Power couplings. Been cycling for 6 hours, he said without preamble. Every time I think I've isolated the problem, it shifts to a different relay. Maya knelt beside the primary housing unit, her trained eye scanning the connections. When did it start? 3 days ago, right after they installed the new harmonic resonators for the breeding cycles. She traced the power conduits with her finger, feeling for heat irregularities. There's your problem. The harmonic frequencies are creating interference with the magnetic containment field. The systems weren't designed to operate simultaneously. Kai looked up from his tablet. Can you fix it? I can isolate the frequency bands. Reroute the harmonic systems through a separate power grid. Maya was already reaching for her tools. It'll take a few hours. They worked in comfortable silence, passing instruments back and forth without needing to speak. Kai's hands were steady and precise, and he seemed to anticipate her needs without her having to ask. It felt natural, like working with a crew that had trained together for years. You don't talk much, Maya observed as she connected a new isolation circuit. Neither do you. I used to. Before I came here. Kai glanced at her. What changed? Maya's hands stilled on the wiring. Have you been through the compatibility assessment? No, I'm not planning to reproduce here. They told me I was biologically defective, that my brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to, that I can't create life because I don't have the right neural patterns. The words came out flat, emotionless. She'd practiced saying them without feeling. Kai set down his tools. That's not defective. That's different. Different doesn't make babies. Different makes everything else. Maya looked up at him, startled by the certainty in his voice. How do you figure? Because if everyone was the same, nothing would ever change. Nothing would ever grow. Progress comes from the people who don't fit the mold. He gestured around. The maintenance bay. You think the Nexari could have built this station? Their harmonic resonance is beautiful, but it's also limiting. They can only create within their established patterns. You built structures that redefined what was possible. The past. Tense, present tense. You're fixing their system right now because you see solutions they can't. The magnetic field stabilized with a low hum, power flowing smoothly through the newly isolated circuits. Maya sat back on her heels, wiping sweat from her forehead. That should hold. Thank you. Kai was gathering his equipment, but he moved. Slowly, like he didn't want the work session to end. There's another issue in the atmospheric processing plant. Similar problem with harmonic interference. Maya looked at him suspiciously. Are you making up work for me? Would that be so bad? She considered this. Working with him had been the first time in months that she'd felt useful, competent, valued for her skills rather than judged for her limitations. No, she said quietly. It wouldn't be bad. The atmospheric processing plant was located in the industrial sector where the ceilings were higher and the spaces designed for heavy machinery rather than Nexari comfort. Maya could walk upright here, move freely, breathe without feeling like she was taking up too much space. They spent the next several days working together, troubleshooting the various conflicts between human engineering and Nexari biotechnology. Kai never mentioned her height, never made jokes about her having to duck through doorways, never treated her like she was anything other than exactly what she was supposed to be. On the fourth day, as they were calibrating the final atmospheric recycler, Maya felt something shift. Not in the machinery in herself. A loosening in her chest, like she'd been holding her breath for months and could finally exhale. You're different, she said as they packed up their tools. How so? You don't flinch when I move. Most people do, even if they don't realize it. They see me coming and they brace themselves like I might accidentally knock them over. Kai smiled. You're careful. I've been watching you navigate this station for days. You're hyper-aware of your space, your impact. You move like a dancer, not like someone clumsy. The Nexari don't see it that way. The Nexari see what they expect to see. They've convinced themselves that anything outside their parameters is automatically inferior. He shouldered his tool bag. Doesn't make them right. That night, Maya found herself walking the outer observation decks instead of hiding in her cramped quarters. The stars seemed brighter somehow, less distant. When she encountered other humans in the corridors, she nodded instead of looking away. When a young Nexari engineer stopped to ask her about structural load tolerances, she answered instead of referring him to someone else. Small changes. But changes nonetheless. Kai found her on the observation deck again 3 nights later. This time, she didn't pretend to be surprised to see him. How long have you been here? She asked. 8 months. I came with the secondary engineering team. Why? Same reason as you, probably. Adventure, discovery. Chance to be part of something bigger than myself. He leaned against the railing beside her. Also, I was running away from home. Maya turned to look at him. What were you running from? Expectations? My family's been in atmospheric engineering for 4 generations. Small-scale work, mostly. Terraforming settlements, orbital habitat design. Good work, steady work, but ... double quotes he trailed off. But, I wanted to build something that mattered. Something that would change how we live in space. Kai's expression was wistful. The Nexari technology represents the next evolution in life support systems. If we can integrate our engineering with our biological processes, we could create habitats that are truly self-sustaining. And instead, you're fixing interference problems. Instead, I'm working with the most brilliant structural engineer I've ever met to solve problems that no one else even recognizes exist. He looked at her. That's not a consolation prize, Maya. That's exactly what I came here to do. The warmth in his voice made something flutter in her chest. When was the last time someone had called her brilliant? When was the last time someone had looked at her like she was the solution rather than the problem? I should warn you, she said carefully. I don't exactly have a good track record with ... This? Personal connections, relationships. I tend to be too much. Too intense, too demanding, too big for the space I'm given. Kai was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? Maya nodded. I spent most of my life feeling invisible. Not just overlooked, actually invisible. My ideas got credited to other people. My contributions got footnoted. I learned to speak louder and louder just to be heard, until I realized I was shouting into the void. He gestured toward the stars. Coming here was supposed to change that. But I've been just as invisible here as I was back home. Until I started. Working with you? Why? Because you see me. Not the family name, not the resume, not the potential for advancement. You see what I can actually do. He turned to face her fully. And maybe that's what real connection is. Not fitting into the same box, but seeing each other clearly. Maya felt her breath catch. Kai ... I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. I just wanted you to know that you're not too much. You're exactly enough. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of possibility, heavy with all the things they weren't quite ready to say. Maya looked out at the nebula, at the swirling colors that painted the darkness with impossible beauty, and felt something she hadn't experienced since arriving on the station. Hoped the crisis began 3 weeks later. Solar flare from the system's primary star disrupted the station's magnetic shielding, causing a cascade failure in the life support systems. Emergency power kicked in, but the necessary biotechnology required specific environmental conditions to function. Without the proper atmospheric balance, the reproductive chambers began shutting down. Maya was in the maintenance bay when the alarm started, her hands deep in the wiring of a filtration unit. The lights flickered, emergency strobes casting everything in harsh red and white. All personnel to emergency stations, the announcement echoed through the corridors. This is not a drill. Kai appeared in the doorway, his face pale. The harmonic resonators are failing. If we lose the breeding chambers, we lose an entire generation of Nexari offspring. Maya was already moving, grabbing tools and diagnostic equipment. How long do we have? 6 hours, maybe less. They ran through the corridors together, Maya's long stride matching Kai's quicker pace. The emergency command center was chaos Nexari. Technicians speaking in rapid harmonic clusters, human engineers shouting over each other, displays flashing critical warnings in multiple languages. Commander Yates spotted them immediately. Chun, we need structural assessment on the primary support columns. The magnetic fluctuations may have compromised the station's integrity. The breeding chambers are the priority, Maya said. If we lose those, if we lose structural integrity, everyone dies. Do your job. Maya felt the familiar weight of dismissal, the assumption that she could only handle the mechanical, the structural, the purely physical. But Kai stepped forward. Sir, Maya's expertise in integrated systems makes her uniquely qualified to address the biotechnology failures. I can handle the structural assessment. Commander Yates looked between them, clearly irritated. Fine, but I want regular updates. They split up, Kai heading to the support columns while Maya made her way to the breeding chambers. The corridors were filled with panicked Nexari, their harmonic voices creating a discordant symphony of fear and confusion. The breeding center was a cathedral of living technology walls that pulsed with organic light, chambers filled with biofluid that maintained the delicate neural networks necessary for Nexari reproduction. And all of it was dying. Dr. Kess met her at the entrance, his usually composed demeanor cracked with desperation. The harmonic frequencies are destabilizing. Without proper resonance, the neural pathways will collapse. We're looking at complete reproductive failure. Maya studied the readouts, her mind racing through possible solutions. The problem wasn't just technical, it was biological, requiring an understanding of both engineering and Nexari physiology that no one else on the station Possessed. I need access to your frequency databases, she said. You're not authorized. I'm the only person here who understands both the human technology and your biological systems. Do you want to save your people or not? Dr. Kess hesitated then. Activated his access codes. The data flooded Maya's tablet complex harmonic patterns, neural resonance frequencies, reproductive cycle algorithms that had been refined over centuries of Nexari evolution. She worked for 3 hours straight, her mind integrating the biological data with her knowledge of the station's engineering systems. Slowly, a solution began to emerge. The harmonic resonators could be recalibrated to create a more stable frequency field, but it would require rerouting power through the structural support network, exactly the kind of integrated solution that no one else would have thought to attempt. Maya's fingers flew over the control interfaces, adjusting frequencies and power distribution in real time. The biochambers responded slowly, their organic components beginning to stabilize as the harmonic environment normalized. It's working, Dr. Kess whispered, watching the readouts turn from red to amber to green. The neural pathways are restabilizing. But Maya wasn't finished. As she fine-tuned the frequency patterns, she noticed something in the data that made her heart skip. The harmonic resonance she'd created wasn't just compatible with Nexari biology, it was also activating dormant neural pathways in her own brain, pathways that the original assessment had dismissed as non-functional. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She wasn't reproductively incompatible. She was reproductively different. Her neural patterns operated on frequencies that the standard Nexari assessments couldn't detect, but under the right harmonic conditions, Dr. Kess, she said quietly, not taking her eyes off the displays, I need you to run a compatibility scan. Now? We're in the middle of a crisis. Now, please. Something in her voice must have convinced him. He activated a portable scanner, directing it toward Maya's temples. The device hummed for a moment, then began beeping in a pattern she'd never heard before. Dr. Kess stared at the results. This is unprecedented. Your neural pathways are responding to the recalibrated frequencies. There's clear reproductive resonance, but on a completely different harmonic spectrum than we've ever documented. Maya felt her knees go weak. What does that mean? It means, Dr. Kess said slowly, that you're not just compatible with our reproductive processes. You represent an entirely new form of compatibility, a bridge between species that we never knew was possible. The breeding chambers stabilized completely 30 minutes later. The crisis passed, the station systems returned to normal, and life continued as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed, at least for Maya. She found Kai in the observation lounge, slumped in a chair with exhaustion, his tablet displaying successful structural assessments. He looked up when she entered, relief flooding his features. You did it, he said. Dr. Kess sent word that the breeding chambers are fully operational. Maya sat down beside him, her mind still reeling from the scanner results. Kai, I need to tell you something. She explained everything, the harmonic recalibration, the unexpected neural response, the discovery that she wasn't defective but simply operating on a different biological frequency. Kai listened without interruption, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something that looked like awe. So you're saying ... double quotes, he began. I'm saying that everything they told me about being incompatible was wrong. Not just wrong, fundamentally misunderstood. Maya looked out at the stars. I'm not broken. I'm just ... different. Different in a way that might change how species interact across the galaxy. Maya nodded. Dr. Kess wants to run more tests. He thinks there might be others, humans and Nexari, both, who have been classified as incompatible when they're actually operating on alternative frequencies. Kai reached over and took her hand. His fingers were warm, calloused from years of engineering work, smaller than hers but strong. "How do you feel about that?" "Terrified," Maya admitted. "What if I disappoint them? What if this is just an anomaly? What if I'm not actually capable of what they think I am? Then you'll have tried something no one else was brave enough to attempt." Kai squeezed her hand. "But I don't think you'll disappoint anyone. You've never been small, Maya. Not in body, not in spirit, not in what you're capable of achieving." That night, Maya stood on the observation deck alone, watching the nebula paint the darkness with impossible colors. Her reflection in the transparent aluminum was the same as always, too tall, too broad, taking up too much space. But for the first time since arriving on the station, she didn't try to make herself smaller. The tests began the following week. Dr. Kess worked with a team of reproductive specialists, mapping Maya's neural patterns and comparing them to the expanded frequency database she'd helped create. The process was exhausting: hours of harmonic exposure, brain scans, biological assessments that probed every aspect of her reproductive capability. But this time was different. This time, she wasn't being examined for deficiency. She was being studied for potential. "Remarkable," Dr. Kess murmured during one session, reviewing the latest neural scans. "Your brain processes harmonic information in ways we've never seen. You're not just compatible with our reproductive frequencies, you're enhancing them." "What does that mean?" "It means that genetic material processed through your neural patterns shows increased viability, enhanced adaptability, and improved resistance to environmental stressors." Dr. Kess looked up from his tablet. "In simple terms, you don't just create life. You create better life." The implications were staggering. Maya found herself at the center of a revolution in interspecies reproduction, her unique neural architecture becoming the foundation for an entirely new approach to genetic compatibility. Researchers arrived from across the galaxy to study her brain patterns, and suddenly her quarters were relocated to a spacious suite in the research sector. But the attention came with pressure, expectations, the weight of representing not just herself but the future of human-Nexari relations. "I feel like a specimen again," she confessed to Kai one evening as they walked through the arboretum. "Just a different kind of specimen." "You could leave," Kai said. "Request transfer back to Terra Nova. Go back to building orbital platforms." Maya stopped walking. "Is that what you think I should do?" "I think you should do whatever makes you feel like yourself." Kai turned to face her. "The person I fell in love with isn't defined by her reproductive capability, whether it's absence or presence. She's defined by her strength, her intelligence, her refusal to let other people's limitations become her own." Maya blinked. "You fell in love with me?" Kai's cheeks flushed. Yes. I know the timing is complicated, with everything that's happening." Maya kissed him. It was awkward at first. She had to bend down considerably, and she misjudged the angle, but then his hands found her face and it became something else entirely. Something that felt like coming home. When they broke apart, both breathing hard. Kai smiled. "So what now?" "Now," Maya said, "I stopped being afraid of taking up space." The first successful reproduction occurred 3 months later. She and Kai had decided to wait until the research protocols were fully established, but another human woman named Elena Vasquez, who had been classified as reproductively incompatible until Maya's frequency discoveries allowed for her reassessment. Elena's partner was Nexari, a bioengineering specialist named Rhythm of Growing Light, and together they created the first confirmed human-Nexari hybrid offspring. The child was healthy, viable, and possessed neural patterns that operated on multiple harmonic frequencies simultaneously. Maya stood in the nursery, watching Elena hold her daughter, a tiny being with human features and Nexori skin that shimmered with subtle bioluminescence. The sight filled her with a complex mix of emotions: joy for Elena, hope for the future, and a deep, aching desire to experience that particular form of creation herself. Second thoughts? Kai asked, appearing beside her. No, Maya said. Just impatience. Dr. Kess approached them, carrying a tablet with the latest genetic analysis. The child's cellular structure shows remarkable adaptability. She'd be able to survive in environments that would be hostile to either parent species. Individually. A true bridge, Maya murmured. The first of many, we hope. Dr. Kess looked at Maya meaningfully. When you're ready, of course. Maya and Kai exchanged glances. They'd been discussing it for weeks, the possibility of starting their own family, of contributing to this new form of life that Maya's discoveries had made possible. But the decision felt enormous, weighted with scientific significance and personal hope in equal measure. We're ready, Kai said quietly. Maya looked at him in surprise. We are? I am, if you are. Not because of the research, not because of what it might mean for interspecies relations. Kai took her hand. Because I want to raise a child with you. Because I want to see what kind of life we can create together. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. For so long, she believed that her body was incapable of creating anything but disappointment. Now she stood on the threshold of creating not just life, but a new form of life entirely. Yes, she whispered. Let's do this. The pregnancy was unlike anything in the medical literature. Maya's body adapted to the developing child in ways that fascinated the research team. Her neural patterns synchronized with the fetus's developing brain, creating harmonic frequencies that supported enhanced cognitive development. Her physical strength increased rather than decreased, as if her body was drawing energy from the creation process itself, but it wasn't easy. The hormonal changes were intense, her emotions swinging between euphoria and terror with little warning. Her already substantial appetite doubled, and she found herself craving mineral supplements that had no earth equivalent. Some days she felt like she was glowing from within. Other days she felt like she was coming apart at the cellular level. Kai never left her side during the difficult moments. He held her hair back when the morning sickness hit, rubbed her feet when the swelling made walking painful, and talked to her belly every night as if the child could already understand his voice. What do you think they'll be like? He asked one evening, his hand spread across Maya's rounded stomach. Strong, Maya said without hesitation. Stubborn. Probably too big for standard doorways, Kai laughed. Probably too smart for their own good. Definitely too smart for their own good. Maya placed her hand over his. Do you ever worry that we're asking too much of them? Being the first, having all this attention? Every day. But then I think about you, how you've carried the weight of being different your entire life, and how you've used that difference to change everything. Kai looked up at her. Our child will have that same strength. That same refusal to be diminished by other people's limitations. Maya felt the baby move then, a strong kick against her ribs that made her gasp. They're definitely going to be a handful. The birth was attended by representatives from 12 different species. Maya labored for 18 hours in a specially designed birthing chamber that could accommodate her size, while providing the harmonic frequencies necessary for the child's neurological development. Kai never left her side, his hand locked in hers as she worked through contractions that felt like her body was reshaping itself from the inside out. When their daughter finally arrived, she was perfect human in appearance but with Nexari neural capabilities, her brain already showing harmonic patterns that spanned multiple frequencies. Dr. Kess performed the initial assessment with hands that shook with excitement. She's responding to harmonic input on 6 different frequency bands, he reported. Her neuroplasticity is off the charts. This child will be able to communicate with species we haven't even discovered yet." Maya barely heard him. She was focused entirely on the tiny face looking up at her, eyes that seemed far too wise for someone who had been breathing for less than an hour. Her daughter was small by Maya's standards but substantial by human norms, with Kai's dark hair and Maya's stubborn jawline. "Hello, Luna," Maya whispered, choosing the name they decided on months earlier. "You're going to change everything." Kai leaned over to kiss Maya's forehead, then gently touched Luna's cheek. "No pressure, little one." Luna gurgled, a sound that somehow harmonized with the station's background hum in a way that made everyone in the room pause and listen. "She's already singing," Dr. Kess breathed. Maya looked down at her daughter, this impossible child who represented everything she had been told she could never have, and felt something settle into place in her chest. Not completion, exactly, but a sense of rightness that she had never experienced before. She was no longer too big, too different, too much. She was exactly what she needed to be. Luna's mother, Kai's partner, and the woman who had proven that. There were no such things as limitations, only undiscovered possibilities. The years that followed transformed the station. Maya's reproductive discoveries led to a revolution in interspecies relations. The rigid compatibility categories were abandoned in favor of individualized harmonic profiling. Dozens of previously incompatible individuals found reproductive partners across species lines. The station's population exploded with hybrid children, who possessed capabilities that neither parent species had imagined possible. Maya found herself at the center of it all, but this time by choice rather than circumstance. She established the Institute for Adaptive Reproduction, a research facility dedicated to understanding and facilitating new forms of genetic compatibility. Her work took her across the galaxy, consulting with species who had never before considered interreproduction possible, but her favorite moments were still the quiet ones at home. Their house was custom-built for a family of unusual proportions, high ceilings, reinforced furniture, and doorways wide enough for Maya to pass through without ducking. Luna, now 3 years old, was already showing signs of her unique heritage. She could harmonize with the Nexari nursery songs while simultaneously understanding human lullabies, and her growth rate suggested she would be tall like her mother, but with her father's more compact build. "Mama, sing the star song," Luna demanded. One evening, settled in Maya's lap for their nightly ritual, Maya hummed the melody that had become Luna's favorite, a complex harmonic pattern that told the story of cosmic formation in Nexari tradition, but with human emotional undertones that Maya had added herself. Luna's neural patterns synchronized with the music, creating a resonance that made the room itself seem to vibrate with contentment. Kai watched from the doorway, never quite getting over the marvel of seeing his family together. Maya had grown into her role as a mother with the same fierce competence she brought to everything else, but there was a gentleness in how she handled Luna that still took his breath away. "Time for bed, little star," Maya said, carrying Luna to her specially designed crib, a scaled-up version that could accommodate the child's rapid growth. "Will you tell me about the big ships tomorrow?" Luna asked, referring to Maya's stories about the orbital construction projects of her youth. "I'll tell you about anything you want to know," Maya promised, tucking the blankets around her daughter's small form. Later, as Maya and Kai sat together on their oversized couch, they watched the stars through the panoramic window that dominated their living room. The nebula had shifted over the years, its colors deeper and more complex than when Maya had first arrived on the station. "Any regrets?" Kai asked, the question he posed every few months. "About what?" "Staying here. Becoming the poster child for interspecies reproduction. Giving up the quiet life of fixing things that break." Maya considered this. I still fix things that break. I just fix different things now. Like what? Like the assumption that different means defective. Like the idea that there's only one way to create life or love or a family. Maya leaned against Kai's shoulder. Like the notion that taking up space is something to apologize for. Kai smiled. You never did apologize for taking up space. No, Maya agreed. But I used to wish I didn't have to. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Luna sleep through the nursery monitor. Their daughter stirred occasionally, making small harmonic sounds in her dreams that suggested she was already composing symphonies and languages that wouldn't be invented for decades. What do you think she'd choose to do? Kai asked. Whatever she wants, Maya said firmly. The universe is big enough for all of her possibilities. Outside their window, the stars continued their ancient dance, creating new patterns of light that stretched across impossible distances. Maya no longer felt small beneath their vastness. Instead, she felt connected, part of a cosmic story that was still being written, still discovering new ways for unlikely elements to come together and create something beautiful. She had never been too big for the universe, she realized. The universe had simply been waiting for her to claim her rightful place in it. And now, watching Luna dream of harmonies that span species and galaxies, Maya knew that the best was yet to come. The universe was vast and strange and full of wonders that hadn't been imagined yet. Perfect, in other words, for a family that refused to fit into anyone else's predetermined categories. Perfect for three hearts that had learned to beat in their own rhythm, creating music that no one had ever heard before, but that sounded, to them, exactly like home.